Hey road trippers, we're in Fresno, California, which is in California's Central Valley, and we're here at the Forestiere Underground Gardens. Now, if you look to the right here, you're gonna see a bunch of citrus trees, and you're gonna say, where is this garden? But that's why it's called the Underground Gardens. We're gonna go see Cami. She's the operations director, and she's gonna take us deep down in these tunnels and see how this guy grew fruit and stuff underground. So come along. One country, 50 states, and many roads. It's all about the American road trip. So please join me, and together we'll visit roadside attractions, fascinating museums, unique landmarks, and offbeat points of interest.
Hi, welcome to the Wrigley Mansion. Come on in.
Welcome to the Museum of the Forgotten Warrior.
But most importantly, we'll experience the inspiring people and grandeur of the American landscape. The Forestiere Underground Gardens is just 94 miles from Yosemite National Park, 145 miles from San Luis Obispo, and 163 miles from the state capital of Sacramento, California. Cami?
Hi.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hi, Greg. It's so nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for coming to visit us.
Well, thanks for having us. And you know, I know it's supposed to be 100 today, and it's already getting kind of warm, but I'm already feeling cool here. What's the deal?
Well, we usually see about a 10 to 15 degree temperature difference down below through most of our tour route. But even up here in the entry with all the grapevines covering us, you just start to feel it right away.
So before we kind of walk down and see what is here, can you give us a little background on the individual who started all this?
Yeah, so his name was Baldassare Forestiere. He was a Sicilian immigrant. His father was very successful in citrus, olive oil back in Sicily. But Baldassare, being the second son, he was not going to inherit the property. So when his father passed, so he decided to come to America to have that American dream. When he got here, though, he originally started in Boston. Familiar with Boston, you know it's way too cold to grow citrus.
Yes.
So he found his way here to California, bought himself 80 acres here in Fresno, thought he was going to have a citrus empire, but when he started to dig into that soil, he hit hardpan, which is one of the hardest sedimentary rocks that we have here in the valley. So then his next big surprise was our Fresno summers. As you said, today we're supposed to get to 102. Yeah. His first summer here had record-breaking temperatures of about 115 for about 5 to 7 days straight. Yikes. Yeah, that's not pretty for anyone.
No, it's
and
not.
especially for him, being a Sicilian heritage, he was not used to that kind of climate. You know, the Mediterranean is very different. So he wanted to find a way just to keep cool. And so what he did is he started thinking about catacombs back home. He started thinking about, in Boston, he was digging out ditches for subways. And he started thinking, well, it's a little bit cooler underground. So maybe if I can just carve out a little room and I can sleep a little bit better at night, I can figure out what to do. So in the meantime, he was working as a day laborer, digging ditches and canals for people around here in the valley, and sleeping in this little room at night. And some of his friends would come over and say, hey, you know, this is a nice little spot you got here. It's not too bad at the end of the day. So he started getting this idea of, well, maybe I could create an underground day resort, a place for people to come and they could be underground, be a little bit cooler, get out of that sun, and maybe I can plant citrus trees underground and see how they do. And that spiraled into this beautiful 40-year labor of love.
Wow. So he kind of started with the original man cave.
He really did start with the original man cave, quite literally.
Now, what we're seeing as an entrance here, was this one of his main entrances, or has this just been utilized for the
This
tours?
actually was his main entrance.
Okay.
So his property actually extended out a little bit farther into Shaw Avenue, but eminent domain took it to expand Shaw. But this was his original entrance. The stairs were added later, but he had a ramp that went down underground, led right to his front door. And so if people were coming down to visit, they could just knock on his front door and he could open it up and welcome them in. And then when he decided that he wanted to start the day resort, he still kept this as a main entrance for people to come down to visit.
Well, that's awesome. So let's go see it. Huh?
Let's go.
All
right this way. Watch your step.
Wow. So we open up into a little vestibule with a tree in the middle of it.
Yeah, so this is actually the first tree that he planted down here underground. So this tree is over 110 years old.
I was going to say, because that's at least 90, so it's 110.
Yeah, so this tree itself was probably planted around 1904, 1906, somewhere right in that range. And as you can see, it is still producing beautiful navel oranges. So,
Awesome. So what do you actually, do you sell the produce?
we actually do. So we do harvest it for the family, for ourselves as well. But we also sell it in our gift shop when it's in season, because we do get guests from all over the world. So some of them have never seen an orange growing on a tree. They've only seen it in a marketplace.
Market, sure. And then I see a few little offshoots. These would have been some of the tunnels he carved.
Yeah, so some of the different passageways that he would do. One of the most amazing things is that he actually had zero education or official training when it came to architecture or engineering or any of that. It was all self-taught and just practice. You know, he just kept going and kept trying new techniques, and he kept learning things. He loved to read about architecture and engineering, and so he would learn that if by making things very circular and open, he'd get lots of airflow going through, which keeps it a lot cooler.
So 90 years later, no building department on his back, no engineers, and it's still standing.
And it's still standing.
This is amazing. All right.
Absolutely.
So people coming on the tour, they're going to come down here and see the tree, but I'm seeing a desk and stuff back there. So this must be really where things get going back there?
Yeah. So our guests, they come down and they get checked in at our desk and get ready for their tour, and we are guided tour, so that way you get to learn it. Yeah, that way you get to learn his history. It's a beautiful place, but it means so much more when you actually know what it's about.
Yeah,
so
I'm there with you. Well,
let's go check it out.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so welcome to the Trinity Courtyard.
Wow, this is nice.
Yeah, this is our largest courtyard that we have, still left from Baldassare's work.
Now, I don't want to interrupt you, but you mentioned that what's left. Tell us about how big, in perspective, like if I look down towards like In-N-Out or the Carl's Jr. I saw, where's the property?
So his property, we are at the most eastern edge of what it was. It actually did expand because he had 80 acres to start with. And that went all the way down to that Carl's Jr. and to where the 99 freeway is now.
That's big. And all caves and tunnels and...
He had passageways and rooms going all the way over to the 99. He had about 20 to 24 rooms excavated that we know of from newspaper articles and whatnot. So,
but this was the largest preserved?
This is one of the largest that we still have left. So we are we actually are down to 5 acres. 2.5 of those acres are underground. So that's what our tour covers, is 2.5 acres of the underground rooms and passageways.
So this is grapes, I see.
You do see grapes.
2 or 3 directions here. I'm reading the sign that says it's over 100 years old.
And like this grapevine, for example, it's a black Moroccan grapevine. So it's a wine varietal.
Okay.
So give us a couple of months and all these grapes that look like they're green now are actually going to be these beautiful amethyst balls hanging up from around the ceiling. It's just gorgeous.
And do you have a way of do you make wines?
We don't, because we don't produce enough.
Okay.
It takes a lot of grapes to make a significant amount of wine. So mostly we do leave these ones up again for guests to see, and again, seeing that canopy is just magical. So
it is. Now I'm starting to see some numbered kind of things, like 3s. You see almost like it's not quite a corner, but I'm starting to see. So is there something going on here with?
There is. Very astute observation. So Baldassare Forestiere, our builder, was Roman Catholic, and he did firmly believe that if he incorporated his spirituality into the gardens, then they would thrive. And so he incorporated the number 3 for the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and then the number 7 for the Holy Sacraments throughout the gardens.
I wasn't sure about the 7, the 3. Okay.
So like the planter right here in the center, as you notice, we have 3 sides to it, 3 benches, and then 3 citrus trees. So we've got a grapefruit here. The little guy over there, it's actually a kumquat tree. We did lose the original one, but we replanted it. It is a little bit on the small side now, but he's got, about 70 years to catch up to the other one.
Sure. So now once but once he stopped, I hope, digging other people's ditches and he made some success here, he did stop that stuff and just full-time here at some point?
He did. So for 20 years, he did both. He labored during the day for other people and then came here at night. But during that 20 years, he not only had the 2 orchards I was telling you about before producing fruit, but he also bought property in Kalinga and was doing stone fruits and nuts over there as well. And his little brother Giuseppe, who lived down the street, had a little grocery store in downtown called the Sicilian Grocer.
Oh, nice.
And so Baldassare would sell his fruit through Giuseppe's market. So the last 20 years of his life, he focused solely on creating this.
Perseverance, the fortitude, of an immigrant new to a different country, just wanting to make it work. And this is amazing.
Well, and he took a lot of what he learned from his father back home. Like, for example, he was a master grafter. Are you familiar with the grafting process?
Basically, something we learned in school, right?
Right, yeah.
Spend some time together and...
Pretty much. It's like you're creating a Frankenstein tree, so to speak. So, like this tree, for example, is a grafted tree. You'll see there's lemons up here, but we've got one of those little navel oranges growing off it left. So when we're in season, cool. March, April, you've got lemons and oranges both growing on this tree. Yeah, so this is one of the rooms that really shows a lot of his genius and also his creativity, not just with the trees, but you really see that stonework and how much effort and time he put into placing that hard pan back up to create that facade.
Yeah. Well, you can't waste anything, right? You got to use what you got here.
Absolutely, and he really would. He would. We always call him the original recycler because he would go down to the railroad, get any kind of scraps that he could find, bring them back here and put them into the walls, into the arches to solidify them and to make them stronger. Like you've got a piece right over there hanging out that, it looks like it doesn't really have a purpose, but it's in there to just make the structure a little bit stronger.
I see.
I think we even have old mattress springs up in some of these places.
That's funny.
Well, you ready to check something else out?
I am.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
So now we're entering into his later home. We call it the New Digs. He started out with just that one bedroom, kitchen, original man cave. But as he decided he wanted to start living down here, he created a 2-bedroom home with a nice courtyard that we'll go check out in a moment, a full kitchen that we will see as well. But I did want to show you this table because it's actually a prototype for the type of tables that he wanted to use for the restaurant he wanted to have down here.
Okay.
Originally, this table, it actually had a planter with a dwarf orange tree growing out of the center. So imagine this, you're waiting for your food to come out, you're enjoying a nice glass of wine, a little hungry, so you just pick a nice little orange, have something to snack on while you're waiting for your food. That was the idea.
That's very cool. Now, we talked about he didn't really have employees, he kind of did it himself, but as he's trying to run a restaurant, is he also cooking and doing all this, or he's got to have some help at some point,
Well, he
right?
didn't actually open up the restaurant. It was just an idea.
Oh, I see.
One of the things that he would always talk about, because people did think, what is this guy doing down here? What's happening? So the Fresno Bee actually came out in 1923, and they wanted to do some investigating on this guy.
Okay.
And so they came out, and Baldassare said, "Hey, come on down. Let me tell you what I'm doing down here. Let me show you my dream."
Nice.
And he told him, I'm creating this underground day resort, and I want to have a ballroom for dancing. I want to have a restaurant down here. And he shared his dreams with this reporter, and people started getting really interested. So people would come out, and they'd be like, what is this guy doing? And he'd be, come on in. He was a very social man. So he'd be like, come on in. Let me share my dream with you. So anything he could use, again, to just fortify the structure.
Well, I noticed a metal, like L rail or something probably come from the railroad.
Well, and that was actually for the windowsill.
Oh.
So in the wintertime, what he would do is he would put glass in the windows here and in the skylights. That way he's keeping out the rain, and he's also keeping out the cold. You ready to see the rest of the house?
I am, yes.
All right.
All right.
All right, so welcome to the kitchen. So he upgraded his kitchen a little bit from that first home, from just the icebox and wood stove to creating an actual kitchen.
So that's an icebox?
This is the original icebox.
At the original even, wow.
Yeah, so that's his original icebox that he had down here underground.
No, they're just wood, so I know you have to put ice in it, not like ours today where it's just plugged in.
Right.
So we had to go haul ice from somewhere, and then you could put stuff in it.
And a lot of people had ice delivery, but at the time he was so far out away from everyone else, he would have to go pick up the ice and bring it back.
And is that the original stove?
This is the original stove as well. So and the stovepipe is up here. So fortunately, his original kitchen is just right over there, so he didn't have to move it too far. But still.
Well, it's cast iron, right?
Yeah,
it's heavy.
It's pretty heavy.
Man.
And then what's above you here, this electrical wire, he actually got electricity down here in the mid-30s.
Well, I did notice an old Marconi, I'm just kidding, an old radio behind this here, so.
That actually is his original radio as well.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
He credited one of the ways that he learned English so fluently was listening to the radio, listening to ball games and and
kind of immersion, right? You get right in there. That's
exactly. He was
that's
fluent
awesome.
in English and Italian.
And Italian. Nice, nice. Now, are any of these plates and stuff original or just period stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, that was added later for the family just to give guests an idea of what he would use. The shelving is original to him, but the plates and everything is just to give that idea.
Now, you mentioned a brother, but I haven't heard anything of a wife. Did he ever marry?
He did not. He never married, never had children. So it was, he was just a bachelor down here. And from what we understand, he dated plenty, but he just never married. This was his true love. There's skylights all throughout for light, but also for that airflow again. And one of the things that he started to learn as he was developing his skills down here is if he would narrow the top of the skylight a little bit and widen it at the base.
It tapered, yes, yeah.
So it actually allows the airflow to kind of come down and push the hot air out while bringing in a cooler breeze.
Man, this guy figured it all out.
And if you like that, check out this table. So right here by the wood stove, he carved out a little seat for himself. He's a bachelor living on his own.
Sure.
But the table, in order to create more space, he actually put it on a slide so he could push it out of the way, store his wood down here for the wood stove.
Oh, man.
And then he could kick his feet up and read or whatever while he sat by the wood stove, ready to eat again. You pull it right back out.
That is so cool.
And his nephew, Rick, who took care of the gardens for years and years, recently passed away. It's his kids who are part of that own the family trust now. Rick, as a kid, would come down and spend the night down here all the time, just pull up a chair and they'd be able to sit and have dinner together. So being Roman Catholic again, fish is a big part of the diet, and the San Joaquin River is only a few miles away.
I was going to say, how far did he have to go for fish or buy it?
He just went to the San Joaquin, a couple miles, spent the day fishing, he'd bring back his catch, and he would just set them free right here in this pond, so he could walk just from the kitchen right here, grab a fish, make dinner.
More and more amazing. This guy's got every little corner of his empire, if you want to call it that, figured out.
He was definitely making life easier for himself down here with his creativity. Even his bathtub is an example of that. So that is the original clawfoot tub back there. And one of the family members years ago created the painting that you're going to see right up here, kind of explaining what he did. And basically, he just took a metal bin, put it at ground level, filled it up with water, let that hot sun do its job.
Warm water, too,
right?
Yeah.
Took a hose, filled the tub up with the warm water, so he's got a nice warm bath under the stars.
Wow. Well, they say, work smarter, not harder. I think he worked hard and smart.
I agree.
He really did both sides of it. Just cool.
And he planted a lot of variety, so not just citrus and stone fruits, but he also had things like the carob, which if you're not familiar with carob, once the pods, right now they're green.
That green circly thing looking there.
So once they're ready, they actually are brown and dry, and you can shave the seeds, and it's almost like chocolate. Not like a sweet Americanized milk chocolate, but more like a natural cocoa powder.
Okay, and for those who don't know, and one of them might be me, stone fruit, what's the difference? Stone fruit, the regular fruits, what we're talking, or the citruses, which one, what is what?
So stone fruits are things that have that pit in the center of them. So like an apricot or a plum or a peach. Exactly.
Okay. That's a stone fruit.
Right,
okay.
And then citrus, they've got the seeds on the inside. So your oranges, your lemons, your grapefruit.
Apples, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, pretty much.
Okay, see, I just look at it, it's something to eat, if I don't think, but that's the technical side of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And so you can't, we were talking about grafting earlier, you can't graft a stone fruit onto a citrus. You can only graft citrus with citrus, stone fruits with stone fruits. So that's why you can get a tree that has plums and apricots growing on it, but you're not going to see a tree that has an orange and an apricot.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Right, and right behind you actually is the bedrooms. What you're looking into, this first one, that's the summer bedroom because it's got that nice big open window. So again, he could take the glass out and then get that nice breeze coming in. And in the summertime, as the sun's coming up, through that little rectangle right there, the sun shines into that bedroom so that he's got a natural alarm clock.
Okay, so north is pretty much that way, right? So as the sun's coming over, he'll get a little high sun and then some shadow. Okay,
yeah.
That's interesting.
And I mean, our trees now, again, they're 80 to 100 plus years old, so they're much bigger than they were when he was down here.
Sure.
But it does create a nice canopy of shade for us. So even in the summertime, like today when we're going to be over 100, it's going to be still about 85 in this area alone just because of all the shade.
Thinking, man, this guy must have just been amazingly fit.
Most likely.
To do that. And how old was he when he got here?
So when
20s maybe?
he started out in 1906, and he was
Okay.
born in 79, so he was only 23.
Okay.
23?
And then he died in the 60s, so he's had 40 years hard labor kind of
Yeah,
out here.
he was. It was 40 years working down here.
Voluntarily hard labor.
Yep.
That's
That's why we
amazing.
always say it's a labor of love.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I've never heard of anything else like this. I mean, certainly not in America. I mean, the old world's got some tunnels and some weird catacomb things, but not here.
Yeah, it's unique, and it definitely makes one of the things that we always hear from our visitors is it's like, why don't we all live underground in Fresno?
So, what's next to see?
All right, well, let's go
Are we about
check
done,
out.
or is there a lot more?
There is a lot more. Let's go check out his chapel.
That'd be nice.
Being Roman Catholic, he wanted to have, obviously prayer was important to him. Nearest church was miles and miles and miles away though. So he built himself a little chapel garden here underground so he'd have his own place of prayer.
And before we I don't want to mess with the sanctity of the chapel. So I'm sure you get tourists from all over the world, right? Do you know what's the furthest place the people write in the register?
Well, so we, pre-COVID, and we'll start it back up again now that things are lifting, but we actually had a world map and a US map and a California map that our guests could put pins in from where they're from.
Nice.
Yeah, so I can't wait to start that up again because it's always really exciting, especially now that travel bans are being lifted. We hope to start seeing more international guests. We've had people from Iceland. We've had people, we've had people from all over the world.
And how do they hear about you? I'm sure people Google today. What do you do in Fresno? Is that the main thing? Word of mouth? Just some internet traffic? I mean.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty interesting because if you think about where we're located, we've got Yosemite right there. I mean, everybody wants to go to Yosemite. Everybody knows about Yosemite. Sequoia National Park is right here, but it's expensive to stay up in those areas. So a lot of people will stay in Fresno and then drive up. So you're looking for something to do in Fresno, planning your family vacation. Sure. You Google things to do in Fresno, or you go to TripAdvisor or Yelp and. Yeah. We pop up, and so then people are, what is this? Underground Gardens? What is that? We also do have a pretty huge social media presence.
Okay, great.
I mean, social media today is one of those things where it's free advertising regardless.
Sure. Yeah.
And we encourage people to share their pictures because the pictures that I take and I post on our social media, they're from my perspective. But it's really awesome to see how we've affected other people.
How they perceive it, yeah.
And how they perceive it.
Any particular Sicilian or Italian that's been here that just goes, wow, what my countrymen did?
Every single one.
Yeah.
Every single one. Anyone with Italian heritage is just like, oh yeah.
This is the way we do
my
things.
people.
Yeah. Awesome.
So,
that's very cool. I mean, eventually cars were out here. Did he have any way of getting a vehicle down for if he's carrying a lot of stuff? I'm sure he's not wheelbarrowing everything, right?
He wheelbarrowed out most of the dirt and whatnot, but he did have a driveway that he created. That entrance that we came down, just adjacent to it, is his auto tunnel. And he actually excavated, an auto tunnel.
That's amazing.
About 800 feet he excavated. He was very smart with that auto tunnel because he did open and closed spaces. So as you're driving through, you've got a nice open area like this so that the exhaust can get out, you get that natural light. But then you go into a closed area so that you've got more of that tunnel kind of experience too. And then he created some rooms going off to the side so you could stop and get out and take a look and see. But the dream was, at the end of the auto tunnel, a valet is going to take that car and it's going to drive it out to the parking lot, and you're going to get out and go up into the ballroom and go to the party.
So
or
you're going to
go
enter down
into
here. That's
amazing, right?
That is amazing.
Yeah. So this is the chapel garden.
This is what we're in. This is the garden.
In. This is the garden part of it. This is probably one of the more serene and calm rooms. It's it's always very interesting because when our guests come in, it's just that.
They do kind of come in and realize there's something different here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but it is. It's different. People come in and it just feels a little bit different.
Now I noticed there's like catacombs or caves coming from everywhere. So a guest on a tour, would they normally, is this the way they're coming into?
Yeah, so we, again, with our threes, there are 3 different ways to get into the actual chapel that we'll see in just a moment. But then we also have our 3 citrus trees again. And grapevine, another one. One of the neat things about this one, though, is if you actually look at it over here where it's coming up originally, Baldassare actually crafted it so the vine itself comes out in 3 different spots. 1, 2, and 3. And then the grapevine has grown around all throughout the room and all throughout the hard pan and into the ground and up again over the years.
Yeah, I saw how it was kind of going through the wall there, and then like say it's coming up there. That's
Yep, it's all the same vine, and that's the original 3 offshoots of it.
This is really cool.
And they connect over to the grapevines that are in the archway that we were under when we came in
originally.
the
So is that
entrance.
just kind of
Yep.
that way?
It all comes together. So if we go straight ahead, we'll go into the chapel and we can check that out. He did create his little area of prayer right here. We actually did have a wedding down here at one point, right here in the chapel.
Oh,
And
nice.
even just recently, last year with COVID, we actually did have a couple who were getting shipped out overseas, and they came down here and they just had a little simple ceremony right here in the chapel.
How sweet and nice.
Yeah.
So who are the people? I see Baldassare, and then there's, Giuseppe, that's by his brother. Looks like a cowboy, look at him.
Yeah.
And then these are his kids?
No, so one of his sons was Rick Forestiere.
Okay.
Rick is the one who took over the gardens after Giuseppe passed
so
away.
think
and
Rick,
that beautiful
right?
lady right there is Rick's wife, Lorraine.
Okay.
Lorraine was not only the very first tour guide down here, but she was instrumental in us getting our historic status. She wrote letter after letter
nice.
after letter and finally convinced the State of California Landmark Society to make us a historic landmark, giving us that protection.
Well, good for her.
All right,
well,
so
that's
we're back
really-
to the lobby.
Well, exiting through the gift shop, right?
You got to end in the gift shop, right?
Well, this has been really interesting, and I know for the viewers, there's so much more here. We touched on some highlights, but I've been here as a tourist myself, and I know there's a lot more to see. So, how much time do you need to plan for when you're coming to visit?
Our tours usually last about an hour long because
Okay.
you are covering 2.5 acres. We just covered a couple of the rooms. We've got quite a few more that you see when you're on that tour. So we usually tell guests if they're looking for how much time they should plan. We usually say give us about an hour and a half.
Okay,
'Cause
so
the tour itself is about an hour, but then we have a bunch of historical information about the gardens in Baldassare and our ballroom area there. And again, you got to shop.
you got to shop. And unlike when I was here, it was pre-COVID, so we actually had to wait. You came up, but right now it's still a reservation system, right?
We do go by a reservation system. We do highly advise making a reservation because if people just walk in, especially on a busy weekend, we may not be able to accommodate within a reasonable amount of time.
So there's a possibility you can walk up, but not a possibility of accommodation.
Yes, it's
Okay.
always best to give us a call. I mean, you can make the reservation online from our website, but if it's same day, we always just tell people, just give us a call. We'll see what we can do for you.
Okay, and you don't have to give us the exact amounts because I know by the time this airs, things could change. But are there discounts for seniors, veterans, any of those kind of things?
Yeah, we do have a senior discount, college student discount, current and former military. And then our kids, 5 to 17, we have a special price for the kids. And then kids 4 and under are free.
Okay, and how accessible is it for wheelchairs, things of that nature?
So we can be accessible to wheelchairs. It's because we are earthen terrain, it's a little on the rougher side, but we can be accessible to wheelchairs. But unfortunately, we can't do motorized scooters, strollers, the extra large size wheelchairs because they just don't fit in our
Don't fit.
passageways.
And historic sites, so some of those things just can be changed also, right?
Exactly.
Because you mentioned you are into historic, right, or the California Register.
Yeah, we
for
are.
sure.
We are a historic site, so we can't really change passageways and things like that too much without losing or risking losing our status.
Okay, and then still for some COVID concerns, touchless pay because you're paying online. But if you're here buying or whatever, you can do all the typical stuff, right?
Yeah, we've got hand sanitizer everywhere, and we sanitize everything daily. Currently, Fresno and California state mandates are if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a facial covering. So we just let our guests know, we're not going to be the vaccine police. We're not going to ask you for your card. We are on a trust basis.
Awesome. And then, okay, of course, we are in a gift shop. You mentioned a trust that it's owned by, right? So I'm taking it, this is all supporting the operation?
Absolutely. So anything in the gift shop, ticket sales, all of that, any special events that we do, every bit of our revenue comes into paying my people and then paying to keep this place restored and kept up.
And you're still family owned, in a trust, but family owned and run.
Yes.
And that is really cool.
Yeah,
that it
it's
hasn't
actually, and
turned
even
over
one
to-
of the family members does a lot of our restoration work.
Oh, that's cool. Well,
Yeah.
I see a new tour coming in, so we don't really want to get it in their way, but I want to thank you for your time. It was very gracious. We enjoyed it very much.
Excellent.
And we'll probably go get a few more shots, but again, we're in the gift shop and plenty of things to get and buy and remember our journey
Well,
with.
yeah, you
so-
got to get a T-shirt before you leave,
Definitely.
right?
And a magnet for the refrigerator and all that
There
fun
we go.
stuff. All right, well, thank you very
That
much.
was
I
my
really appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you for
Thank
visiting
you.
us. We appreciate your time.
And your Shaw Avenue, Fresno, right off the 99.
Yes, West Shaw Avenue, just 2 blocks east of the 99.
All right, thank you again.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.